Hello friends, Tanya here, and today I am playing with a pile of different products, but primarily with a single cover plate. This is called the Mini-Slimline Blooms cover plate from Trinity Stamps, and I had cut it out of a white piece of cardstock and then decided I wanted to try to stencil through it, and I discovered that it makes an amazing stencil. This reminds me of both sunflowers and honeycomb at the same time. So I'm going to take this and use a piece of cardstock that's bigger than I'm going to need at the end, and I'm stenciling through the blossom parts with some mustard seed distress oxide ink. Incidentally, that's the same color that's ink blended over the entire cover plate die cut here. And look, just wait. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? Those flowers just really stand out. So one of the ways I use that is to die cut a panel a little bit smaller than the Mini-Slimline cover plate. So I reached for my Mini-Slimline stitched stack, also from Trinity Stamps, and I die cut that with the stitched layer. And I also did one by inking over the stenciled area, so it just added a lighter layer under the stenciling. And look at all the ways I can use this. There are several options here, some with the cover plate, some without. And I'm going to assemble these, and we're going to make 6 cards. I'm just taking a line of glue around the outside of that cover plate, and then I'm making a little puddle of glue on the side of my hand and tapping the detailed portion of the die into that puddle of glue, and that works perfect. I don't have to spend a lot of time gently dabbing glue, and I don't get a lot of extra glue either. I used some shimmery white cardstock behind that yellow. Was that yellow gold? No, that was the ink blended one. And now I am adhering all of those covers to 3 by 6 inch Mini-Slimline cards, and I just line those up on standing up on edge on my desk to get the edges all nice and even. And I use a heavyweight block to add a little extra pressure to adhere those. This is great for doing mass production of cards where you create your card front or most of your card front and then adhere it to a card base, and you can do the same step for several cards all at once. These are the stenciled only panels. I don't have the cover plate on top of those, and so there is a nice little white border from the card base behind these. I didn't add any extra dimension behind any of these cards because I didn't think they needed it. Lots of texture. Next, I'm taking the Oh Happy Day stamp set, and to go with that honeycomb feel, I'm using the Just Because sentiment, and I am inking it up with some juicy ink or some Versamark, some watermark or embossing ink. And I'm going to heat emboss this with some white detail embossing powder. I happen to love the Alabaster White Brutus Monroe ultrafine embossing powder. It is my go-to white embossing powder. We're using our heat tool to get that nice and melted. And I had taken a scrap of yellow cardstock from my accordion stash to ink that, and we're going to use the coordinating die to die cut our sentiment. Now, it could have been a little bolder, but it's a nice soft feeling to this entire card. We'll die cut that really quick, and look at that, just perfect. Now I do want a little dimension behind this, so I'm going to take some coaster blank and die cut it with the same die, and then I can layer that behind our sentiment. Just using a little Bearly Art precision glue and tacking that sentiment to the coaster blank die cut. We'll adhere that to the center of the card. And there's this little tiny bee in the stamp set. It also has a coordinating die. I'm just going to use a clear block and stamp this on a piece of scrap cardstock several times. I'm stamping it to fill that entire scrap so that I have a few extra bees all set for the next time I want to use them. Sometimes it's nice to be able to just pull out our already stamped and colored image to add to your projects. So it doesn't hurt to take a little extra time and do a few extras when you're at it. I'm just going to heat set that ink because I'm going to Copic color over this. And if you don't heat set it, sometimes those hybrid inks don't dry well enough and then you end up with a little smearing. I'm using 2 yellows and a toner gray. And I started with T7, but I decided to back off a little bit and went with T6. It was a little too dark. You lost the details of the stamping by using the T7. So the T6 is perfect. I'll color the little head, and then I will come back and color the back end with one of the yellows. I did grab 2 yellows, but there's not enough space to do any ink blending. These are really tiny little bees. And then I'll come back with the T6 and add the stripe partway through the body. Helps if you use the right end. That chisel tip would have been way too big. Then I pull the coordinating die from, oh, nope, I added a little clear wink of Stella to the wings to add a little sparkle. Can't forget the wings. Now I grab the coordinating die from the die set, and it is tiny, very tiny, and I die cut 4 of these little bees to use on this card. We're going to adhere that to the front of this card, just using a little Bare Layer precision glue. What do you think? Does this look like honeycomb? It really, really does remind me of honeycomb and bees. And I just love bees. You're going to see that I pull one of my favorite sets from last year from Hero Arts out too to create a card here. I'm just going to tack these down. The pickup stick is fantastic for this. And I can just add a dab of glue and put my little die cut right back down. We're going to add one to the inside too. Oh, and I decided to use some of these luminous lemon baubles from Trinity stamps. They're a nice lemony yellow and are nice and shiny, and I love that there's several different sizes in these embellishments, so I can add a little variety there. I like it when my embellishments have a variety of sizes. Just going to scatter those around our little bees. Gold would have looked great too, but I wanted to use these lemony yellow ones. I've got them. I just don't have the opportunity to use yellow very often. Maybe I will now that it's spring. Lemony yellow. Oh, I just want some lemon meringue pie now. Yum. Do you have an abundance of embellishments? Have you been just hoarding them? Is it time to pull them out and start using them? I've thought about using some of these baubles in shaker cards too. There's so many great ways to use them. Here's our little bee on the inside. I chose not to add a sentiment at this time. This is a very general themed card. Next, we're going to use the Thinking Tree stamp sets sentiment. This is Thinking of You. I stamped that in clear ink and embossed with some fairy dust embossing powder. And now we're going to use the Lovely Latte baubles to add centers to these not snowflakes. These are sunflowers. And I had used a blue cardstock for the cover plate. This reminds me very much of all of the Ukrainian things we've been doing lately. Next, I'm using the Simply Sentimental Hello and You die sets and stamp sets. I stamped and die cut this Hello. I had stamped it in black ink and then embossed with the fairy dust embossing powder, which is a clear embossing powder with glitter in it. And I embossed the Sunshine Sentiment in white on black and die cut that using the banner die from the Simply Sentimental You die set. Here is that absolutely stunning bee stamp set from Hero Arts that came out last year. This is from the Hero Arts my monthly hero kit that ended up turning into 2 stamp and die sets that came out in the main catalog this year. So if you are interested in this, it's available as 2 stamp sets. They're called Sweet as Honey and Unbelievable. And I love them. I have used them so many times. It's one of those sets that is very unique. You never see these chubby bumblebees in stamp sets. And there's 3 different positions that they're in. And I just love them. I stamped and colored probably a dozen of these too, because I just love them. Love them, and I will throw them in all kinds of cards. We're going to use one of the sentiments on the inside of this card. So we used that Hello Sunshine on the front, and we added a cute little bee on the front with that. And we're going to add that bee on the inside with this You're Beautiful. Love it. Next, we're going to do a thank you card. I just used some black glitter cardstock and some plain black cardstock to add some dimension behind that. Thanks. And last up, we have a stamp set. This is called Peony Bundle. No, Peony Bunches, I think it's called. And it's a stamp, die, and stencil set. So you can stamp and then stencil in those flowers. And then I used a sentiment from Yana's Simply Layered Script Sentiment and the Splatter Sentiments Glimmer foil to make that thanks. This last card used the Glimmer Edge butterflies and the Thinking of You. These were pieces that were laying on my desk. The butterflies and those peonies, they had been laying on my desk as components to cards that I just didn't actually use. Here's a recap of all of the cards I created. Let me know which one you like the best. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear what you have to say about my video. And if you aren't subscribed, please take a moment to do that now. If you're interested in any of the products that I used today, check that description box below. They are listed and linked for you as always. And until next time, here are a few more videos that I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.